Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, coming at you live to talk about episode 2 of the anime series Net-Juu no Susume. And I thought there was some really interesting imagery in this episode. Of course, there were really contrasting themes to do with our main character, Moriko, and her dealing with Yuta, and both online and off. They haven't really explicitly said that the female in game persona is Yuta, but I believe it is. And, Moriko in her male, player game character guys is. I really like the dynamic going on there. These are really supportive, caring, compassionate game players. They're all part of a guild, and this guild is a guild, as we find out in this episode, that's been around for a while, and the original sort of guild master was going to close it down, but they decided they wanted to stick together. They're a high-level guild and all this kind of stuff, and there was some sort of, almost cursory, sitcom-level stuff going on in the way that Moriko and Yuta meet in the real world. He elbows her in the face coming quickly around a corner after presumably they both spent the night together online as their player characters playing this game, keeping company with each other. And it was just charming and funny that. But it really contrasted with the dream sequence she goes through in the aftermath of this, having been knocked out and I guess, gotten a concussion or something. She has this, almost fever dream vision of this Orwellian sort of future where the trudging masses in two lines, which is imagery that really harkens back to one of my all-time favorite classic science fiction films from the 1930s, directed by Fritz Lang, Metropolis. There is similar imagery in that film, even down to the Tower of Babel, which you see all of these faceless, seeming soulless, workers, 9-to-5 workers, trudging up those steps and leaping off into nothingness, losing themselves. And these are all sort of the primary fears and concerns that Moriko has about, the life she sort of decided semi-officially to leave behind, the 9-to-5, cubicle worker kind of job, and now she's a NEET and everything like that. And we see that this is something really deep-seated internally within her, as per this vision. I think it is representative of she doesn't want to conform to a conformist lifestyle where she's just another nameless, faceless person working at a keyboard, She'd rather do something that is creative, something that really, breeds a social interactivity without actually having to deal with her anxieties on a daily basis going out into the public life, even just going to the convenience store or going to get cold medicine, and maybe it's warranted because as soon as she goes out, she gets plowed in the face, elbowed right in the puss, So, I mean, it was funny that, but it was like, I was almost cringe worthy when that happened. I was like, am I watching Three's Company or something? Like from back in the day. But it was really awesome that, Yuta, for his part, he's going to stay bedside with her until she comes to, and they kind of hit it off. They kind of have a rapport, and it's almost an unknowing extension of that same kind of relationship dynamic they have in the game. If they are, in fact, if that's, who he is in the game, the female character who, Moriko is always talking to more chiefly than the others. And I thought it was really interesting how they're trying to get to know each other, and there was the whole aspect of some of the other guild, members had a running bet, a pool as to how old, his player character would be, or rather her player character in the male guys would be, and trying to get to know the offline persona. And it is kind of confusing in a sense because here she is playing a male character. This other character, Yuta, is probably the other female character, and then you have, another couple of guys, another chick part of the guild and everything. And so I'm kind of looking at the ending animation. I'm kind of under the assumption that the other female character is the female we see in, the sort of offline guys in the ending animation. and that the other two male characters we see are presumably the other two male characters that are part of the guild. So it's interesting that the sort of two main focused characters are the ones who have the gender swapped characters. So maybe it's not as confusing. You know, I was gonna say it kind of gets confusing because you're not sure. You're not sure, you know, who is whom and everything, and trying to get to know, you know, Mariko through her male player character guys, when she's looking for advice, and they all end up being there for her. They are willingly being there as shoulders for her to lean on and ears to listen and give her advice, because she relates the whole story about having been plowed in the face with an elbow, only she gender swapped the roles there as well. You know, it was a girl who did it to her, the guy, you know, as per the story version that she told them. And they're all supportive and like, well, maybe, you know, you shouldn't leave her hanging, meaning the guy, if they'd only known, you know, because he's concerned. You know, he feels responsible. He knocked you on your ass. He knocked you out. And, you know, maybe he wants to knock you up. I don't know. You know, at least that's what was going through the minds of a couple of these characters. But it's really charming and cute the way they are supportive of her, not knowing she is a she, and now, you know, wrongly having gotten the confirmation that she's in her 20s. Both the guy and in her 20s, or in his 20s, is their estimation, you know, where she's like a 30 plus female. And she really, that seems to be another aspect that she is very self-conscious about. That's very detrimental to her. If anyone finds that out, oh my gosh, you know, world-ending stuff, you know, Chicken Littling all over the place. The sky is falling. So, I mean, you know, this was a really good episode once again. And I really, again, I have to pay the utmost attention to the imagery that was going on there, because it's really speaking to her deep down internal frustration and conflict about what she wants for herself in her life. You know, there is a level of her being somewhat perverse, though not in the extreme. I compared her to, you know, Tomoko Kuroki from Otomote, and I'm still seeing that. The way she gets giddy about hooking up with the female player character in the game, and you know, gets unnerved about certain things that are, you know, spoken about back and forth in their dialogue, when she's incessantly hitting the crying emoji, you know, because it's just the height of emotions. Like, this is the most social interactivity she's had, so it's kind of gobsmacking her. She's living vicariously, but she's still very much at the center of it, and it's kind of like she's got to live this dual life now, and that's coinciding very much with this female player character, who I think is Yuta. So I can only hope that we stop tiptoeing around this uncertainty in the game as far as the game characters goes, because toward the end of the episode, they kind of started to tip the hat that this female player character, you know, she finds the Moriko's male player character in the tree, and you know, there's some dialogue about, well, now we're in the same boat, now we're facing the same thing. I don't know what she meant exactly, but I kind of, you know, was speculating that she had heard through the grapevine that this male player character had met a girl, and, you know, he was nervous about hooking up with her. And so if this is Yuta, you know, he is the opposite end of that without knowing that, because he's playing as a female, and the presumption by the other players is that that's a female offline as well. But it's just really interesting, and I thought it seemed to hint to me that when the female player character that Yuta is utilizing is saying, oh, we're in the same boat, it's because they're both acknowledging the fact that they're pursuing someone awkwardly, and it feels kind of weird, and it's new and everything like that. Little do they know that it's each other, you know, and so that's the one nagging thing. I hope they don't push off and off and off for too long. I hope that somehow, some way, they're going to figure out who they are to each other offline very soon. I hope it's not something they stave off for too long, because that'll get really utmost annoying, I think. But yeah, I mean, this continues to be a really charming, down-to-earth, relaxing show to watch, and you know, the charm of, again, the compassionate natures of these characters, that they want to support each other. I've had good fortune myself online in doing videos and you know, communing back and forth on Facebook and other social media things. It's mostly YouTube and Facebook that I use. But, you know, I've had the good fortune of meeting really similarly friendly and supportive people, and much more so than the negative, than the kind of people you want to get rid of. Those are there too. In fact, when they talked about, you know, somebody who's able to stay online all the time because they don't work or anything like that, I mean, there are a few people that even today, but for the longest time, I've encountered every time I log into Facebook, they're there. You know, and like they never go offline. Never. It could be any hour of the day, and there they are logged in. And sometimes that's great because the person is genuine and supportive and friendly, and the conversation is just fantastic. But other times it's damn near annoying. So I mean, it's interesting to hear these characters kind of talking about that as well, and the idea that, you know, this is one of those sort of stepping stones to their getting to know each other, to trying to figure out what is behind the online player game character guise, you know. And for now, at least, they're all flummoxed. They all kind of have it specious and incorrect, and as to whom is who, you know, and everything, and vice versa. But I was smiling through the entire episode, and like I said, I was really compelled by that dream sequence. All of that imagery, the Tower of Babel, the trudging masses up the hill into oblivion they jumped and leapt, and you know, here we have Motoko at the center of that. And that is the utmost thing that terrifies her. Losing herself to conformity, to irregularity, in the sense that, you know, she doesn't want to have to be what is air quotes normal, you know, and she wants to live this sort of free life of playing these MMOs. And I think it's kind of going to be like a burgeoning coming of age kind of thing. Even though she is in her 30s, you know, she's still somewhat of a wallflower, and I think somewhat socially inept, dealing with social anxieties and things like that. And I think through her friendships and acquaintances that she's met in this guild, you know, especially with the Yuta character, I think this could be the tipping point for her in finally sort of breaking out of that mold. And that's going to be an interesting aspect to this, especially with the charm and the wit that is as yet apparent. So yeah, loved this episode. Love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of this episode, if you've seen it as well, and if you enjoyed it as much as I did, if you thought it was as intriguing as I've laid out in this video. If not, why not? Let me know, of course. Anything goes, as long as we have great conversation. And but yeah, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.